It's week one. The Buckeyes and the Texas Longhorns are all set for the marquee matchup to kick off the 2025 college football season. I guess it's a kickoff, right, with week 0 being last week. But we're with you today on the Buckeye Breakdown Podcast. Excited to bring you our first show of the brand new season. I'm Anthony Moeglin, my partner, former Buckeye Kevin Woidke. And Kevin, as we jump into this show here, from a fan perspective, from a player perspective, talk about the feeling that this is. It's week one, man. It's all, the hay's in the barn. The work's been done in the offseason, and now it's time to freaking play some football, man. I'm fired up. I know you're fired up just the same.
Yeah, no, from a player standpoint, they're getting into the swing of their first week of school. Kind of syllabusly, maybe some professors are hardos and giving some assignments so far, but no, and then it's, you're ramping up. You're getting into the routine of a game week. You got the full pads Tuesday. You got the shoulder pads Wednesday. You got the perfect Thursday. Today is maybe an off day, maybe not. I'm not 100% sure how they're probably doing today. But, yeah, and then Friday is best Fridays of football, and then we hit the ground running on Saturday afternoon.
It's unbelievable that it's here, and we're excited to bring it to you. I know a lot of fans are jumping into all types of different Buckeye content. If you're new to the page, we're certainly happy to have you here. Make sure you're subscribed to our channel. We're going to have you. Our game weeks are pretty full of content. We'll have breakdowns all throughout the week. We'll split it up show by show. So Mondays are typically offense versus defense. Wednesdays are typically defense versus offense. And then Fridays are just a full weekend preview. We talk about the Buckeye game. We get into some of the other games around the country. And then on Saturdays, we're loaded with content. So we'll come to you with a pregame show. We'll also do a postgame reaction show. We'll have all of the press conferences from coaches and players. And then Sunday, we bring you a film review episode where Kevin and I kind of dive into the X's and O's of what the game looked like. And we love doing all that. So if you're new to the channel, make sure you're subscribed. And if you're old to the channel, make sure you're subscribing, liking all of our stuff, and get in the comment section. We love interacting with you guys down in the comment section there. But Kev, you kind of mentioned something here that I want to hit on. And you and I lived it firsthand when we played. Obviously, you played at Ohio State. I did not. I played in Division III football. But the weeks are sort of structured similarly, right? Where Tuesday's really that Tuesday and Wednesday are your big work days. That's where you get the base game plan in. That's where you get a lot of your first down calls, your second down calls, your drive starters, the stuff that you need to be comfortable with. And those are the big work days. Oftentimes, like you said, it's full pads, it's a lot of contact. And then you get to Wednesday, and that's more situational. Or you get into Thursday, and that's more situational. Maybe you do your red zone plays on Wednesday. Maybe you focus on a 2-minute drill and really hammer down those situations, because when Friday rolls around, it's more that walkthrough style. Early in the season, maybe not, but it's more that walkthrough style where you're kind of honing it in and putting the final touches on everything, make sure everybody's sharp on the game plan. And then Saturday, obviously the game, and then Sunday's a big day. Sundays are huge. You get a nice post-game workout in, and those are critical. But then you also get into the film room and correct what you do wrong. Then they go out on the practice field on Sunday afternoons before getting that off day on Monday. So every week's pretty much structured just like that. So as we bring you today, it's likely that the Buckeyes are off. I don't know how it is coming out of a fall camp, but that's how it'll be typically in the season here. But Kev, for week one, man, we talked about it a lot, and really the eyes of college football are going to be on Columbus. And it is kind of cool. We kind of bellyache about the noon thing all the time. But in this scenario, in my opinion, you got ESPN will be there. Obviously, you got game day. Fox Big Noon Kickoff will be there. It'll be the marquee game at noon. And it is kind of a cool deal that they are using this game to really kick off this season, because all the eyes will be on it. It's Lee Corso's final game, and it'll be the start to what's going to be an incredible football weekend and the start to yet another college football season.
Yeah, no, they got everybody in the house for a noon game. It probably would have been a little bit better if it was a night game. I think everyone else would have appreciated if it was a night game, including myself. But, that's how Fox works. And we wanted to – I hope that when we got the Big Ten struck this deal with CBS that we'd be able to get out of this and get into the 3:30 slot. But, Fox is king, I guess, for us. So that's how it goes. No, but I mean it'll be fun. Lee Corso's last game day, the new big noon kickoff, which is just revolving door people. But no, it'll be cool. It'll be really cool.
It'll be sweet. The environment's going to be nuts. I've already seen some stuff just through social that Columbus has a different feel to it right now, and it is kind of cool, man. It's been a long time since a marquee matchup like this kicked things off, especially for Ohio State. It's been some years. Actually, what was it, 2006 or 2008, that they went down to Austin to take on the similar matchup? Texas #1, Ohio State #2, many years ago. But it kicks off a great weekend of a lot of good matchups. Notre Dame and Miami is #6 versus #10 on Sunday night, and with a handful of others sprinkled in. Alabama and Florida State. Clemson's got a big game in there too. So this isn't just your typical softball into week one. And for this one, it's not hard to forget that this was the semifinal rematch, right? It's about 6 months ago now that Ohio State and Texas squared off in the Cotton Bowl, and Texas was going in to tie that thing up, 4th and goal. And Quinn Ewers got strip sacked by Jack Sawyer, who took it to the house in one of the most crazy plays of Ohio State football history. And now they're running it back, and it's got everything to it. But a lot of those storylines, man, are going to be around Ohio State replacing a lot of their team, right? We've talked about it a lot on the offensive side of the football, a lot of new faces on the defensive side of the football. Texas is actually going to be a little bit more of an experienced group. They have certainly lost a lot, but it is going to be critical for Ohio State and all, Kevin, of their new faces to be on their P's and Q's. That's not just the players. That's also all of the new coaches too. And it'll be really critical for those guys to really get it going. You got no runway. You got to start week one against one of the best teams in the country. And you can't be making a lot of big mistakes with a lot of these new guys.
I mean, yeah, we have a DC who's called a lot of football games as a defensive coordinator in his career. At the NFL level, it'll be his first college game, but I see it being pretty similar for him. Then you got Hartline, who's never called a game in his life. So you get both sides of it. It'll be really interesting to see the defense that we put out there. I'm not going to lie to you, I wasn't really watching it when I went to that practice. I wasn't looking at the defense schemes or any of that. But it's going to be an interesting defense for sure, knowing Patricia. So I'm looking forward to seeing what we put out there with the players we have. He'll be able to do whatever he really wants.
Yeah, and on the offensive side of the ball, man, you look at the game from last year, and really, I mean, the Ohio State wins 28-14. You look at the statistically speaking, Ohio State looks like they threw the ball well in the air. Will Howard finished the day 24 of 33 for 289 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. But when you look back at it, a lot of those yards came from that Travion Henderson 75-yard screen pass at the end of the first half. And you take that away, that's a 200-yard day for no touchdowns and an interception. Pairing that with a rushing attack where we knew that going into last year, or not going into it, all year last year, Ohio State's offense went through their rushing attack. It was a run-first attack, and then that opened up the pass game. They couldn't really get it going on the ground. 24 carries for 81 yards. They did have 2 touchdowns. Quinshon Judkins was able to punch the ball in twice, but it was kind of tough sledding throughout that entire game. And that's kind of the first point I want to start on when we get into the back and forth that this game's going to be. Ohio State replaces not only a ton up front, but in the backfield, you replace 2 of your star running backs who were, the key cogs of that entire offensive attack. And now you got 2 guys who are brand new, who are going to be toting the rock. James Peoples is going to be kind of leading the way, and then C.J. Donaldson behind him, the transfer from West Virginia. More of that power back, man. But the more I've thought about this game, the more I've realized, hey, that backfield is going to have a lot of pressure on it to perform and to be really, really efficient when their number's called on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, we got a lot of new faces on the O-line. It'll be up to the running backs to find those holes and hit them hard. I mean, they're returning some good players. They're obviously bringing in some new faces on that Texas defense. So it'll be interesting to see how we utilize our run game to maybe focus on those new guys and try to run closer in between the tackles as opposed to outside. But even these outside guys, they're not that big. I mean, 6'6", but he's 260. So it's like, that's one of them. It's just, it's different. It's a different style than what, you're used to out of a Texas team.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And on the Ohio State side of the ball, like you feel like we got into a rhythm last year where you knew what you were going to get between Quinshon Judkins and TreVeyon Henderson. It took them a little bit to kind of get their personality, not only as running backs, but as an offense, right? Where you look at offenses, it could be at the high school level, the Pee Wee level, the college level. They talk about having an identity. Well, Ohio State was in that shotgun a lot, and they used TreVeyon Henderson to try to have that big play. He was their big play threat. He could stuff it up the middle, but they would prefer to use Quinshon, who was more of that power back, still with some elusiveness to him, but he's more of that power back, where TreVeyon was going to be more of your big play guy. And you're going to have to figure that out, and you're going to have to make sure you balance James Peoples' carries and make sure that he's not getting 20, 30 carries. I don't think that's what that Ryan Day is going to want out of these guys. But also, too, you got to get Donaldson in there in important situations and not just, hey, it's 3rd and 2. He's going to come in and hand the ball off. They got to mix him in and make sure that's timed up very, very well. So it'll be interesting to see how Ohio State does that. And we're going to learn a lot about what Ryan Day wants from this offense, what Brian Hartline is envisioning as the new offensive coordinator, and you're going to learn a lot of it early on. But, Kev, where every game starts is up front, right? It's in the trenches. It is the offensive line and the defensive line. The two foundations of both teams are where a lot of games are won and lost. Ohio State's offensive line is going to be a new look, right? Austin Sarivold has kind of taken over this Ohio State offseason as a guy who had dominated the offseason, elevated his game, elevated the respect that his teammates have for him, was named a captain. He's going to be right next to Luke Montgomery, who's right next to Carson Hinsman at the center position. And then you fill it out the rest of the way. Tagra is going to get that first crack at the right guard. And then I'm not sure exactly if they announced who that final right tackle is going to be, but it's going to be some rotation of guys filling in at the right tackle position. But you feel good about Ohio State's offensive line, but they're going to be going up against a really formidable a Texas defensive line, one that has a couple guys back from last year, but is also going to have a few new faces in it.
God, I hope we aren't rotating right tackle. Just pick a guy and go with it. That'll drive me nuts if they're rotating by series like they did last year. But anyway, I digress. On the, Texas side of the trenches, they have Colin Simmons, who's a 6'3", 240-pound sophomore. I'm just going to go down the line of heights and weights. Then inside of him is Colin Brevard, 6'3", 250-pound senior, new guy transferred in from Purdue. Then you got Murad Watson, 6'3", 230-pound sophomore from Syracuse. And then Ethan Burke, who's got the most experience in this Texas defense at the other end, 6'6", 260. So, Ethan Burke, 3-year player with Texas, all Big 12 honorable mention in 2023, did not earn any mention in the Big 12 or in the SEC in 24. He's got 7.5 career sacks with 74 tackles, which isn't that much. And he's got 1 career INT. Then inside of him is a Syracuse 3-star transfer, Murad Watson, sophomore, 30 tackles last year and 1 sack as a true freshman. Inside that Syracuse defense, who, they played some meaningful games with Kyle McCord as quarterback, but after that, I wouldn't consider him a powerhouse defense. Then you got Cole Brevard, who is a Purdue transfer. A lot of people leave from Purdue this year. He was a honorable mention, all Big Ten last year in 2024. Has 23 career starts, and inside those 23 starts, he has 38 tackles, 2.5 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. So he's a bigger guy, and I don't know how well he moves. That would explain the lack of stats. Then you go to the other end, which is their best player on their defensive line, Colin Simmons, true freshman last year, appeared in all 16 games, was an All-American freshman and an All-SEC freshman. 1 INT, 48 tackles, and 9 sacks. Lead the starting defensive line. I mean, if you combine if you combine Murad and Watson's sacks, I mean, even if you combine all three, Colin Simmons is only, what is that, 2 sacks behind all three of the others combined. So he's the real guy in the pass rush. He got hurt in our game. I think he got hurt in our game last year, at least for a quarter. He's the real guy you got to keep an eye on. He wears number 1, and he's just a monster. He's like I said, he's what, 6? He's 6'3", 240, but very quick, very fast, good with his hands, plays great on defensive line, and will be a handful, which I'm assuming they will put up against either the right tackle, and if whoever the right tackle is, if he starts playing well, I won't be surprised if they just start flipping him. But I think Burke will be the guy we run at, and Simmons will be the guy we key on for pass protection of when to get the ball out of our hands.
No doubt about it. And I want to hit on something you started with, and those 2 guys that are going to potentially be getting time at the tackle position, Ethan Oniawa, the transfer from Rice, and then the other, Phillip Daniels, the younger transfer from Minnesota. Both guys are huge in stature, standing over 6'6", weighing up over 330 pounds for both of them. Daniels, if you remember from a couple shows back, he's the guy who's got 3 years left of eligibility. And one of the things that all of his teammates say about him is how just physical that he is. You know, he is a guy who's going to inflict a lot of pain and make sure that you feel him on the field. And then Oniawa, right, a little bit more of that finesse guy. Obviously, he's huge in stature, so he's good just from that perspective. But, really getting him downhill and going after guys in the run game is kind of the thought there. But, Kev, step back to, hey, I don't want to be rotating guys. How important is it, especially early on in a season, you're going to have an offensive line that's got really 4 new pieces to it across the board. How important is it to just let guys, whoever it may be, whether it's Oniawa, whether it's Daniels, to learn through mistakes and to really continue to build that chemistry, especially when you're facing a guy like Simmons who can wreck a game, or you're facing a defensive line up front that wrecked your game last year. And if you're subbing in and out and you got that thought in the back of your head of like, if I screw up, I'm going to come out, kind of makes you play a little bit slower. And you just can't do that. You can't play with any hesitation, especially in a game like this.
Right. That's the biggest thing, is you don't want them to think that they're one. You don't want them to think that they are one play away from getting pulled. Like, that's just the reality of it. No matter what it is, whether it's offensive line, whether it's managing salespeople, you don't want them to think like, hey, you need to make the sale or you lose your job. They might think that themselves. You don't want to tell them that. Like, you want them to think, hey, go out and do your best. And, we get this deal, we do, we don't. But the reality is, it's the same way with offense. That's the same way with anybody in sports. Like, give them confidence. And if you feel the need to pull them, that's your decision and that's you being a coach. But don't flip-flop left and right being like, hey, this is, oh, yeah, you know what? You're on a short leash. Like, they will know. They're not dumb. They'll know if they're on a short leash or not.
Yeah. It's critical, man. And it's one, especially as the year goes on, that's one of the hard things. That's why these coaches get paid the big bucks, because those are really tough decisions and you got to do them the right way, because with young minds like these kids are, it's really hard to, you get benched, you come back from that. It's really hard to come back from. And that's just the way it is. So it's going to be a huge challenge up front. And not sure exactly what Texas is going to come out in. I've been reading some things from the Texas World to the Texas Beat, and they're calling their defense a 4-2-5. I've seen a couple 3-3-5 stacks, and all of them present different challenges. We'll get into it on Sunday on this show. But Kev, get into the offensive lineman mindset, because I always thought this was super interesting. You may not have a lot of tape early on in the year, and I remember our first couple weeks was really hard to evaluate what you're going to get from your opponent, because when you break down when a team breaks down tape and they're watching Texas and they know, if this was a game in week 8, you would know every snap from all 6 of their games or 7 of their games, and you'd be able to have a really good feel if they're coming out in an even front or an odd front, or if they blitz a lot on third down or not. When you play a team in week 1, there's a lot of learning that has to take place on the fly, and that affects your preparation, because, hey, as an offensive line, as a quarterback, you got to be ready for all types of coverages. But as an offensive line, you got to be ready for all types of pressures. You got to be ready for all types of fronts, and that's critical in the pass game. That's critical in the run game. It's really hard. How does that happen? Does that happen a lot, in between series? Does it happen at halftime, at the change of a quarter? What is that like when early on in the season, an offensive line's trying to figure out, hey, we're getting this. Let's change our calls to this or that. What's that like from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of evaluating at the line. It's a lot of coming over to the sideline and articulating what you're seeing out there so that the offensive line coaches can evaluate how they see it. Like, hey, what are you seeing in third down and 6? Or so then, because most of these defenses break it down with third and short, third and medium, third and long, and they run defenses based off of that. So if you tell them, hey, it's 2nd and 2 and they went into bear, like, okay, they're like, all right, so then we can start to scheme for the second half when they jump into bear. Like, all right, so it's 2nd and 2, let's throw a hit over the top because that means someone's most likely getting single coverage or there's single coverage on the line on the running back and throw a dump pass out to the side. Like that's where the difference is. And that's where it's, hey, let's be smart here. And that first quarter, it is going to be a chess match between both these teams of figuring. There might be some big hits, but where it's schemed up and they're successfully scheming them will be most likely in the second quarter into the second half.
Yeah, because as true as it is for the Ohio State offense to kind of figure out what the Texas defense is doing, they're doing the same thing because they don't know what Ohio State's wrinkles are going to be. They don't know what Ohio State's new attack is going to be. Even though some of the stars are still there, it's going to be a big change in evaluation for Texas as well. So the trenches are going to be something to keep your eye on, right? It's going to be important. It's important in every single game. Ohio State's guys are going to be a little bit less experienced than some of the transfers and some of the returning guys that Texas has, but they have a great coach. And you think that if Ryan Day's leading this offense and letting Brian Hartline be the OC, but Ryan Day's still got his hand in it, Ohio State's going to be they're going to put their players in very good positions, play in and play out there. So just a couple things to clean up from last year's game. Texas was able to get to the quarterback twice. They just had 2 sacks on the day, 4 TFLs though. That'll be something to keep your eye on in the run game. Like I mentioned, that's going to be really important. Something I'll get to in a little bit here, but with a young quarterback, staying ahead of schedule, and I'll explain that here shortly. Staying ahead of schedule is going to be very critical, but it'll be something to absolutely have your eyes on Saturday afternoon. What is going on up front? Now, what everybody in the country is going to have their eyes on is number 4, right? Jeremiah Smith is on a warpath this year to continue or to pick up right where he left off from last season, right? Finished the year with over 1,300 yards, was hands down the best wide receiver in the country as an 18-year-old. But if there was one game he would want back, 2 games he would want back, one of them would have been this one. He finished that Cotton Bowl with just 1 catch for 3 yards. That's crazy to say out loud. 1 catch for 3 yards against the best, as the best receiver in the country. He was targeted 3 times. Like I said, only hauled in that 1, and it was on a screenplay. It was backed up, just kind of a little swing route. He caught it, was able to get a couple yards. But what you found is that when you go back and watch it, and there's a really good breakdown from Brooks Austin. He runs the Film Guy Network. Highly recommend going and checking it out. But Texas didn't do all that much special. You think you see that stat line and you say, hey, they double teamed him all day or triple teamed him all day. Really wasn't the case. They kind of just played ball and kind of let the game come to them and forced Will Howard to make some tough decisions on, hey, this window's a little bit tighter than I want. I don't want to force it. So he would kind of pull back a little bit. And when you think back to the Michigan game too, Michigan's head coach, Sharon Moore, just said, hey, we want to pressure the quarterback and not allow him to get the ball to number 4. Very similar to how Texas approached Jeremiah Smith. But Kev, I want from your perspective, where's the balance, especially with the new quarterback? Hey, everybody knows they want to get Jeremiah Smith the football. What is it from the way you see it? Like, hey, don't force him the ball, but you need to get 4 going early because he's going to be really impactful if Ohio State wants to win this game on Saturday.
I think you get 4 going by getting other people the ball first. I think they're probably going to run that bracket coverage again, which means you got to get the ball. You got to force them out of it. You got to get the ball to Claire. You got to get the ball to Ennis. You got to get the ball to, Tate. You got to get the ball to Kazmarek if you put him in there. Who knows? You got to be creative with how you get the passing game going, because it's safe to say they're going to do similar to what Michigan did, where they're going to bracket him and then bring pressure. And you need to be ready for that to happen and have quick routes for this young quarterback to get the ball out to hit that can go for chunk plays, because that's the only way you're going to break them off that bracket coverage is if you go up 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns quickly, getting the ball to other people, then they come off the bracket, then you hit Jeremiah over the top, then you're up 4 or 5 touchdowns. You're like, what just happened? Yeah. Because that's the way you're going to do it. And that'll send a message to the rest of the country that we got to come up with something different, because Ohio State can beat us without getting for the ball. And they're going to be creative with how they do it. Mm-hmm. They're going to figure it out. Ryan Day's going to figure out a way to get for the ball, but it's just a matter of getting it there. Like you gotta run a drag route underneath with Jeremiah, because that's the only way. Force those linebackers, bring him in motion, drag route underneath, and force those linebackers to come fake it to him, and then have Claire doing a zip route on the other side. Mm-hmm. Everyone's going to commit to Jeremiah, and then you just have Claire going out the other way, pump it, throw it back to him, and he's up the sideline. Like, that's just one example of how you could do it. But it's like you got to think of different ways to use him as a dummy while in that bracket coverage, and then get him the ball. And if they don't go after him on that drag out, then hit the ball and have him go up the sideline, or have him make a couple cuts and get it first down. And well, look out. Like they're going to be quick. It's going to be it has to be a fast-paced offense. And with a guy like Hartline, who's a wide receiver, he should know how to get him open.
You missed your calling, dude. You should have been an offensive coordinator. You got all the answers, brother. But no, you make a really good point there, because I want to look at while Jeremiah didn't have the best game last year, right? 1 catch for 3 yards and really nothing else. Carnell Tate had his best game as a Buckeye, 7 catches for 87 yards. Maybe not as a Buckeye, but one of his best games in the biggest moments. 7 catches for 87 yards. Emeka had 5 catches for 50. This isn't like being facetious. We do joke about the tight end position a lot on this podcast between you and I. Tight ends are super valuable. G. Scott last year, 5 catches for just 30 yards, but 5 catches, 6 yards a pop is massive in a game like that, where every first down is important. And then Will Kazmarek had 2 for 21. So it's like, hey, you're so right, dude. You're like, hey, get everybody involved. And the biggest point for a young quarterback, Julian saying his first start, is like, do not force him the football. Like, if you're just staring down number 4, that is a bad deal. If it's covered, get off it, because the truth of the matter is, if you took Jeremiah off the field, Carnell Tate would be the best receiver on the field, bar none. Brandon Innes would be second, but right behind him. So it's not like you're going from Jeremiah and there's this massive drop off. Right? It is. Jeremiah is here, and Carnell and Brandon Innes are probably here. And then Max Clare, you get him involved. You make the perfect point of like, hey, here's how you solve this problem. Use everybody, and that'll open up windows to get Jeremiah Smith the football. And when you do that, like you said, he will be the avalanche, right? You got to establish the lead with everybody else, and then let number 4 be the guy who takes it from a 2-score game to a 3-score game, or a 3-score to a 4-score, and then let it go from that way. But I would say the biggest thing for Julian saying, and I'll get into it in my keys of the game, but do not try to force the ball to Jeremiah. When you get him the football, if you just do it naturally throughout the life of a play, that's where the big plays come. It doesn't have to be that 50-yard ball. It could be that drag route where he breaks 1 tackle off to the races, because he is obviously that type of talent. But I think you hit the nail right on the head there. So, Kev, as we turn the page here to our keys to the game, Saturday is going to be massive, right? It is going to be a huge environment, a big test for Ohio State, the number 2 team in the country, whatever poll you look at, 2 or 3 in the country, taking on the number 1 Texas Longhorns. What are your keys to the game on the offensive side of the football, that if Ohio State does these couple things, that they're going to be in good shape come Saturday afternoon?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be playing fast, moving the ball around is going to be huge, and protecting the football, because the team with the least amount of turnovers is probably going to win this game. Mm-hmm. It's just you get, when you're playing teams with these 2 calibers, you cannot give them free possessions. You have to score or almost score to tire out their defense. Otherwise, if you're giving them quick outs, it's just going to snowball quickly. And that's where it's a matter. And they're going to have the same issues. They have a freshman quarterback that played a little bit last year, mostly in the run game, not really passing. And then we have Julian, and it's similar amounts of play that they've had. Like maybe Arch has played a more meaningful snaps. However, who they're replacing all their wide receivers on the opposite side of the ball. But we'll get into that on Wednesday. What I'm saying is, for us to be good with a young quarterback to keep his confidence up, don't cough up the football on run plays, and he's just got to be smart with the football. That's it. Because if you can get that confidence going quickly, by halfway through the second quarter, beginning of third, if he's like, oh, this is just like a high school game, or I've done this a million times, that's gigantic for not just this game, but going forward. Because if it takes him 3-4 weeks to get going, we can look at some closer games we wanted against Grambling, against, OU. Like, that's where it's got to be, consistently. Let me walk that back. That's why it's got to be consistent with how deliberate he is with his passes, and how you set him up for success. Like audible out of a play if you see a blitz coming, if you see cover 3 coming, tell him, hey, no, and signal in a new play, because if you're running a post route against a cover 3, it's not going to work. Mm-hmm. But that's where you got to be like, all right, here's your first read. Let's get him an under route here. Like it's just how it goes.
And I would add too to that point, like Will was good last year in those scenarios, right? You had a veteran quarterback who has seen a lot, played a ton of football, and didn't get spooked by a couple different, post-snap coverage changes where it looked like it was going to be 1 high and they rotate out to 2 high, or vice versa. It's in 2 high and they drop a safety down to cover for a blitzer. Like when you do that against a veteran quarterback, they've seen it and they know how to respond to it. You do it against a young guy, you don't know what his response is going to be. And they obviously know that Julian's this is his first start. They're going to heat him up. They're going to try to confuse him. They're going to be doing all that stuff. So he's got to be prepared for it. I do love what you said about the tempo too. Like, hey, use tempo as an advantage, because I think you can speak to it. You use tempo, right? It's not only for tiring out the defensive backs and trying to get them off kilter. It's about tiring out the interior, right? You can't sub these guys in and out. We're going no huddle, and hey, you got to keep the same guys in, and you're attacking them downhill. That can pay dividends not only in that drive, Kev, but for drives to come, quarters to come, when you speed it up like that.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what it is, and it's got to be, you got to mix it up too. It's got to be, hey, we're going tempo. And if you do a run play where you have Donaldson in and you want to sub in Peoples, but you want to go tempo, too bad. That's fine. If one guy can't do something as good as the other, who cares? If you're going tempo and got them on their heels, they're going to mess up. And that's where you got to take advantage of that, where it's, hey, the D lineman's out of position and we're running in between the tackles. Well, if he's out of position and we're using Peoples instead of Donaldson, it won't matter because he'll get 3 or 4 yards out the gate without having to run through an arm tackle, because this guy's not where he's supposed to be.
Yeah, it's a great point. Using tempo to your advantage is huge. It's huge, and it's something that Ohio State's certainly going to leverage. All right, for me, there's 2. They all go back to the quarterback. This is going to be a big test for Julian Sayin. Obviously, the environment's massive, but it's his first game at Ohio State. I know you and I talked about last year when Will Howard played his first game. It was against Akron, right? A little bit different of a feel, and he had the benefit of, hey, we could win, with our right hand tied behind our back in this ball game. Now, Julian doesn't have that. So, hey, balance all your emotions. Like, hey, let that walk to the stadium be the last time you take it in. Like, all right, I'm the Ohio State quarterback. This is really cool. My day is going to be a lot cooler if we win this football game. So that's all that matters. I don't want you looking around. You got to be locked in at the task at hand. Now, what is critically important from a X's and O's standpoint for him is to stay ahead of schedule. I referenced this a little bit ago. You're going to hear me say it now. I'll say it a million more times throughout the rest of the season. I can't tell you how important it is to, on first and second down, to be going forward, even if it's a yard, right? At the moment you start going backwards, you get into 2nd and 13, you get into you take a penalty on first down, it's 1st and 15. That makes it really, really hard, because then you're in 3rd and longs. If you can be in 3rd and manageable all afternoon, if you could be in 3rd and 6, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 1, those are downs where you can win those. You start getting into 3rd and 10s, 3rd and 13, 3rd and 12. That becomes really challenging, because the defense can get very creative and they can force you to make big mistakes because they know you have to pass the football. So very, very critical that Julian Sayin keeps this offense ahead of schedule and ahead of the sticks, ahead of the chains there. And then the last one, you touched on it, don't turn the football over. If you start turning this ball over, it's going to be a very, very long afternoon for Ohio State. They just got to, from the quarterback's position, Julian's got to be really careful about turning the football over, but balancing it with not becoming scared to try to make a play. Right, there's that fine line to balance, and he's got to do it. He's got to do it in a very very efficient way. And if they do those things, I think they're going to be in fantastic shape come Saturday afternoon. So that's going to be it for our offensive preview show here. Ohio State's offense is going to have a big challenge on their hands. They're replacing a ton of guys at every level of their offense, and they're facing a defense that's hungry and that had some success against them last year. So as I referenced earlier in the show, Kevin and I will be back on Wednesday doing the flip side of this. We're going to be looking at Ohio State's defense versus the Texas offense. And Kevin dropped a hint earlier. Texas is replacing a lot of guys, just like the Buckeyes are. So is the Texas Longhorns. So that'll be really cool. And we're super excited to bring it to you. Like I said at the jump, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you like our video. Jump into the comment section if you agree or disagree with us. We love jumping in there and interacting with you guys there. So for my partner, Kevin Woidke, I'm Anthony Moeglin. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight on the Ohio State Buckeyes on SI YouTube channel.